Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for coming out to join us for this IT Presents this evening. I know it's been a minute, or maybe a few months. So thank you so much for coming out and supporting this amazing group of students and our external partner as well. And tonight, it's a treat because you're gonna learn about their entrepreneurial journey. So the JobHax team, and they're all gonna be able to introduce themselves and give you a little bit of their backstory and their trials, their tribulations, what they went through, and hopefully that will inspire you within your own work for either master's or PhD year, and just be able to really continue to grind it out, especially with finals. Either you just took them or you're about to take them this weekend. So good luck with that. So a couple of housekeeping things. Right here is our sign-in sheet. So with this sign-in sheet right here, if any of you did not get to, please sign it right before. If you're looking for this for any sort of documentation, I would strongly encourage you to take a photo of this right before the presentation ends, or right after the presentation ends rather, and because this sheet will be shredded right after. So please make sure if you're looking for this for documentation purposes for your class to take a photo of it for your own records. Also, the team, please request that you move up just a little bit further. They would like to be interactive with you. I know I've been in the audience myself before, and typically when I get those requests, I'm like, I'm not gonna move. But seriously, we'd like you to move up front, so please feel free to move up a little bit more. They want to be able to engage with you. This is Sako, one of the team leads of JobHax, so yes, kicking it off, awesome. It's either that or you're headed to the restroom. Hopefully you're headed up front, thank you. But without further ado, I would like to present and bring up the JobHax team. So can we get a round of applause?
Can you guys please move, because it's informal meeting, just have to keep it back. If you want to be more interactive, just ask questions, don't be shame.
Hello everyone.
Yeah, please.
My name is Silas. I'm part of the JobHax team. I'm not an IT student, but I work with a lot of IT students. Today we want to talk about our journey and how we got to where we are. Hopefully it'll help you guys in your own, if you're looking to build on an idea or something. Hopefully you can learn something from us, and if you're interested in the idea, it's also an opportunity. If you would like to contribute to it, we're open to that as well. And with that, we can get started. So I'll introduce the team a little bit first of all. If this works. There we go. So this is a core team of JobHax. That's me right there. I'm a product manager at Google. I work there currently. Before that, I worked at Microsoft in Seattle. And so Sako, right there, he works at OpenGov. It's a cool startup in Redwood City doing DevOps and security. Before that, I worked in Hawaii. Our core engineering team is also here with Seifo and Ege. Ege is right there, Seifo's in the back. There are also engineers, IT students, and we've been working closely for the past year and a half on this project. And as we were working along, we met some advisors, two of our main advisors. First one is Ken Pope. He is actually based in Europe, France. Very cool professor and career coach. And he's also a startup advisor and influencer in European colleges in Berlin and south of France. We also got connected with Boris. Boris is founder and CEO of ID Action. He works with a lot of startups in helping them grow, get funding, general mentorship on kind of how to build out a pitch deck, stuff like that. He's also a startup alumni himself, so he's went through the whole process, and so he's been pivotal in giving us valuable feedback as well. So this is our team. We've had people more people in the team as well that are contributed a lot towards JobHax. And we couldn't fit everyone here, but this is a core team that stick with us from the beginning. So what is this product all about?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll talk about. So there's a couple of different phases we went through, right? There's the idea phase, and then we move on to the vision, and then the plan, and then the execution. So the idea was in the beginning, right? You start with a certain idea, and the idea tends to kind of mold into different forms, and it turns out to be something completely different. And so, actually, the idea started with it was me and Sako were just generally talking about kind of the problems we see in the job hunting area. Sako and I were housemates, so we were living in the same area in Sunnyvale, and so we would generally like meet for dinner or something, whatever. And we were talking about some of the troubles we went through when applying to jobs, and that's kind of how this idea itself has started and evolved as well. I saw Sako, I think about a year and a half, he was applying to a bunch of positions, a bunch of jobs. I think in the current marketplace, it's not like you apply to one, 2, or 3 jobs. People tend to apply to like 15, 20, or even more sometimes to get the position that they want, and to even get a call back from the recruiter. And so I saw him randomly applying to a bunch of different places, actually a lot, and he would get calls from recruiters, and in the middle of a bus ride, people would call him up and he'll be like, hey, I saw that you applied to a company, and then he would have an idea of oh wait, which company, recruiter are you from? And so those are the kind of problems that we were dealing with generally, organizing the job search. And so as we were discussing more about it, that's when we realized that this is actually a problem for a lot of millennials because they're applying to so many jobs, and because the marketplace is so dense right now, especially in software and technology, that there are so many companies, and you have to send out a minimum certain number of applications to get a response back. Not only that, but the interview process in the general employment landscape is drastically changing. So you'll see you'll have to not only prepare a tremendous amount for the interviews, but that interview process itself is changing over time. You can see it from the way, for example, from my own experience, the way I interviewed with Microsoft early on, and the way I interviewed with Google after that has completely shifted in the way, the type of questions that they ask as well. And so we realized that once we got more involved with ITU, this kind of problem extends, or the root source of this problem is from the university itself, right? Because that's when people are actually applying to a lot of different positions and getting involved more heavily in the job market. So you can see here, this is I'm just providing some data points here. There is, this shows the trend of hours per day spent job searching, and so you can see how it's increased over the years. Around the recession time, or before the recession time, it's been about 2 hours, 2.5 hours, and you can see right now, currently it's at 3 hours preparing for job applications. You have to send out newer job applications, like I mentioned. Multiple recruiters and job information need to be kept track of, and interviews are not straightforward as well. So you can see the breakdown here of the different majors and how long it takes, and you can see within the tech field, it takes, for example, mechanical engineers, they struggle a lot, and they have to send out so many applications even to get a response back. And so generally, in tech especially, and other areas also, it's pretty high. These are two separate charts. So you can see here the process that a single person went through. So these are two different people, and it shows, it tracks their journey throughout the job application. So you can see this person on the right side sent close to like 500 job applications. Most of them like direct applications, some LinkedIn, Indeed, blah, blah, blah. And you can see like almost half of them cut out because they don't get a response. And then the other half are heavily like scrutinized, and then end up getting like close to like not even like 10% of the job applications they apply to tend to become tend to turn into return calls and interviews. And so you can see in both these cases, it's like that. Some interesting facts. So just connecting this back to how it looks for a university. So 67% of college students don't have jobs lined up after graduation. This is a general metric, not specific to tech, but just in general. 83% of college students reported that career service offices was not helpful. This is the other problem space we found, right? Once we started looking into the university, we found that career services was an area which was supposed to provide help, but usually there is a lack thereof of the kind of help to provide, and it's not the career services fault when we dig deeper into it. It's actually the fact that the career services doesn't have the right tool sets or the right technology or data to support students in their job hunting endeavors. And you can see in the last metric, 77% of career center directors think that their students grasp what it takes. They don't think that their students grasp what it takes to get a job. And so that's a really interesting thing because it shows that the career advisors themselves think that their students are not set up, for success. And so there's a gap here in what the universities are lacking to provide for students. So let me rephrase the problem statement a little bit more clear. So the employment rate of students is an important concern for universities. I think this is clear, but there's a gap here. And university career services is disconnected from the job search process and the employment landscape. And what I'm trying to get at here is that because the landscape is changing so often, it's hard for career services in any school or most schools to keep up. And no easy way exists for universities to get its students' job search data into provide targeted assistance because it's hard for universities to figure out where all the places that students are applying to. And so this is the problem that we decided to tackle after talking with Sako. We thought that this is an area that's definitely lacking, and fortunately ITU eventually, Sako will talk more about our journey within ITU and how it grew into a relationship of how we could benefit each other in providing a platform for ITU to make their career services better for the university itself and students, and how JobHax benefited from that relationship as well. Also, feel free to ask any questions in the middle. Just raise your hand and I can stop and you can answer it. So the solution, high-level solution that we came up with, a platform leveraging job data analytics, automation, predictive insights for university to help students land their desired job. This is the high-level solution that we targeted to help, and the impact that's going to have. Basically, you're targeting our success metrics is to save time during the job hunt. So clearly, people are spending a lot of time hunting for jobs, and we want to make sure that we reduce that time. Boost ROI by being data-driven means career services and the university spend a lot of time and resources invested into their students, but it seems that those resources are not really helpful. So maybe there's something we can do here to help reduce the costs for universities. At the end of the day, increase hiring by providing targeted help, right? So the way we can increase hiring is, doing these kind of things with the university. So the product flow is like the following. We have a platform where you can apply anywhere, right? You can apply through LinkedIn, you can apply through Indeed, and when you log in through our platform, you would sign up with an email, and our platform basically pulls all of the different job applications you applied for automatically behind the scenes, and so the first step that a user would do is go and apply the job, right? And then when you log into our platform, it pulls all of that data in the back end, and you have all the relevant job data like pulled into the platform itself. So say you applied to, for example, you see on the picture below, someone applied to Tesla, right? And you can apply to multiple jobs like that. And it would pull all of those job sources, and it would query, like, for example, Glassdoor and Paysa and like other APIs. So it can get stuff like, hey, what's the company title, what's the position, what's the expected salary range, what are the types of interview questions that you can ask for. All of this data gets aggregated into these job cards, and you'll have multiple of those. And all these job cards get organized into columns to track which stage of the interview process you're at. So you could be at the application phase, you could be at the interview phase, the phone screens phase, the offer phase, whatever it may be. All of it gets tracked on our dashboard. And so this can be used by multiple students within a university, and you can share this information with your college advisor or career service. And so then they have visibility into all the places that you've applied for, which stage you're in, and access to not only single people's view of the dashboard, but an aggregated view of all of the areas which a student is applying for. And on top of that, we built metrics and data, and there's a lot of stuff you can do in this area, right? So once you have this kind of data, the university can go in and see, for example, hey, 90% of my students are applying to Android development positions. So maybe we should ask our professors to focus more on interview questions related to Android, right? They can do things like, hey, we'll see that most of our students are applying within the date ranges May to June or whatever. Okay, so maybe we should host our career, what do we call it? The job fair. Yeah, we can host our job fair like right before people are having increased activity in sending applications, and so they could benefit from stuff like that. Another example is you could see, hey, like out of all my students, it seems like some of these students are kind of falling behind in the interview process, or they're not applying to enough jobs, and people can go, the career advisors can go and provide targeted help by saying, hey, these students are kind of lacking, let me just go and help them out, see what kind of trouble they're facing. Maybe they're having trouble with interview, and so they'll be able to provide that kind of targeted assistance. So we have, because of the product, right, we have a couple of things that, like I mentioned, there's different things. Like you have, the university can now be data driven. They have visibility into what their students are doing. Everything gets automated. You don't have to go and schedule appointments with career services. Everything happens through the platform itself. There's aggregation of information. So now you're not going to different sources, like researching on the web for different areas. Everything gets pulled into kind of one centralized location. It's easy to use. The UI flow is easy enough, and the information is organized in such a way that it should be intuitive. And it's backed by intelligence in terms of metrics, and in the future, machine learning and AI, to be able to do predictions on, for example, like one area you could imagine is you could take an aggregate number of students and say, hey, students who have GPA X and have courses that are in software and take a multiple of these kinds of variables and say, hey, what's their success rate of getting a job in a certain position? Because now we have that data, right? And now you know that, hey, this student has applied to this position and he failed here. This student has applied for this position and he succeeded here. And you can take all that aggregation and back it by machine learning and AI and really provide something useful. So, yeah, that's an overview of the product. I hope you guys had a good idea of what we do. And I'll give it to Sako here to provide a little bit more information on the process we used to get here. And yeah, I'll just Sako talk.
Thanks, Jonas. Okay, how is everybody doing? Come on, some vibes. Do it. Okay, nice. So I guess most of the people IT students, and I appreciate also professor, and I see some taking their time and coming, and basically I will first talk more about the product perspective. Now I'm going to talk about from student perspective. So let's get going. So I started school in fall 2018, where we were just talking about the product, the Suhas. There was nothing was done really. So we didn't have any experience, we didn't have anything done. It was just sold and keep brainstorming. Should we do it? If yes, how? And we were hearing a lot of no's from the friends that's basically I think it's typical thing that usually people hear from friends. That's the most stupid thing you have to do. Just go and study algorithms and get to some top companies. And that's where we were, and it was hard to convince to do that journey. So as you can see, a couple things you may need to know or good to know. When you start, you have some lack of skills, and it's also hard to build a team, to convince people. Like we have founding engineers like Session04 and Egemen just to start working and put in the time, because time is expensive. And we are in Silicon Valley where it's more expensive. So why you should waste your time doing it if you can just get prepared for interview and get 200K or 300K per year. So that was the challenge. And we were getting a lot of no's, but there was a time that Joe, he is no longer, I guess, with ITU, so basically I said, hey, we are working on something, and if you can, we think that we need some feedback from professor. Basically, he arranged us some small meetings from ITU professors where we get shocked, because they really challenged us a lot, and we really couldn't answer most of the questions. So I have, at this point, small question to audience. What's the job of CEO and what is the job of the CTO? Any ideas? No? Nobody? What the key thing CEO should do? No? Really? Come on, don't be shy, it's an informal meeting. Go for it. You want to take it? Any random people? For example, what do you think? What's the job of CEO?
I think the difference between the job is more into strategy, planning versus operations. As I see it.
So CEO is more strategy.
Is more into strategy planning and CEO is more into
Operations
operations.
planning. Okay. How about other thoughts? Manage people. Whose job is that? CEO. Okay, what else? Okay, probably even your dad is not gonna tell you, but we're gonna tell you the key difference. So that's what we also didn't know. So we keep talking to founders and stuff, and we get learning. So the job of CEO is go and fundraise and talk to customer. That's the main thing CEO should do, like more in business side. And the job of CTO, there are two things. He should build a team, he should build a product. So, and you can't have all in one people and in one person. So you need at least one of your friends to convince to start the journey with you. If you have a great idea, that's perfect. You can go and build, but if you won't really go fast and make something in a reasonable time, you should find at least one partner to start the journey. So now you know, at least you need one CEO, one CTO. Okay, and the rest, for a while you can keep this out, but if you want a software product, you need a good development team, founding engineers that you have to involve. That was key secret sauce of our project. Even in the beginning it wasn't that, but we get there. So now you see, building product exercise, building team exercise, getting those, running against the clock, because we were doing as a school project for software development where we had like final project graduation date, but we were lacking of expertise to build it. We didn't know where we should get started, and we didn't know which tools, etc. That was a missing, and that's why we asked for help. We went to friends working in Nginx, in Sling, and some big companies, and we just asked for help. That's where we started the journey. So we were using in the beginning agile process. It's not really was scaling solution because there are over communication in agile. Basically what we were doing Monday to Friday, we were having a small WhatsApp group and we were calling and everybody was giving their updates like 5-10 minutes. But if you are scaling out, it's really hard to keep it. Then you need to have leadership mindset, people who gonna lead the small groups where we didn't have. So it wasn't really scaling for flat team architecture. So we were start meeting every Sunday. We were going and having dinner, and at the same time bringing up the laptop and just talking about where we are and what we are gonna do for the next week. So, and we were celebrating small wins. So every Sunday we were inviting one of our friends and asking and showing what we did and their feedback. That guy, he works at currently Nginx, which was bought by F5 Networks. Basically, after that meeting, he was dropping me home. I didn't have car at that time. So basically, he was trying to convince me not to do it that after that meeting, because he was thinking I should just don't waste time on it and just go out and just prepare for the algorithms and the interviews. So basically, but he agreed to help in some level to review our code because we didn't have expertise and stuff. But overall, we were just getting feedback, and I told him, hey, as a friend, I love you, I really appreciate your feedback, but I'm gonna still do it. We're gonna still do it, and because if you really think that you should do it, I think you should do it. Simple as that. So then so before the spring semester start, it was we come up with a roadmap. Oops. Sorry. Okay, it was like December 15 that where we come to ITU and we finally presented the V2. We released version 1 of our product. It was mediocre product, it was working, but front end, back end was all together, and there was some technical scaling issues, but overall, the functionality-wise, it was there. So we finally managed to build it. We had some hard time in communication in the team. We said, okay, we're gonna start doing ownership, who's gonna do what, and for example, I was doing, let's say, DevOps, and there was decided to be front end, so they wanted back end, and so was for product side helping and design. So basically, ownership is important. Whatever you are building, somebody has to own something. no, never just go with a bunch of people and doing everything. So there is, in startup term, there is no full stack. You should really, somebody has to own something. So that was a key takeaway for us. So then we come back from the vacation. We had a good time at Las Vegas, where we, as a team bonding, we were celebrating our small wins. And then we took as a school project for another class. This time there was a limit for 5 people, but we managed to convince professor with enough data that hey, we're gonna do it in a big scale. We were thinking we are ready for it. But unfortunately, we were not ready for it. That's why we were struggling. We were struggling not from the team perspective, but more from the leadership, management perspective. And the struggling points were that there were different mindset people, and you needed to change the communication depending on the person. That we were lacking of, and because we didn't have it before. So we challenged a lot, especially me and Zoas, and that was great lessons learned. But we managed as a team to come over it and to make all the team members happy in the end and build version 2. But you see, like we were tracking everything in Trello, and we were taking picture for all the stuff because the data is important. Like for you, if you want to go back and look at stuff, it's really important to build a history behind it. Not just go and do a bunch of meetings and without any planning and stuff. So, as you can see, then after we scaled up, we had now the responsibility. So building a product, you need a couple things. You need somebody like product manager to give you the features, and then the design guy should go and mock up this data, and then the front-end team should build on it, and the back-end team, which should write the business logic for it, and somebody has to take care of documentation and all this stuff. That's the main software development process, like the team key functionality you should have, and based on whose expertise is most, you should share on it. So far, any questions? Yeah, go on. Documentation, yeah, that was in a agile environment that when you are moving fast, it's becoming so depreciated and time wasn't taking time, but it's good to have if you want to scale. Because you don't want to go and explain to newcomers when you're onboarding and offboarding people that, hey, that's a flow, that's kind of good to have if you're really scaling massively. But it was lacking usually I think I am also from my past experience also, it's one of the main points for the teams, because then they leave and then somebody comes and don't know where it is. But the good thing was, because we were doing as a class project, we needed to deliver documentation. That was one of the key deliverables for us. So usually what we were doing, we were developing and doing documentation after the latest one, and then closing the deal like, hey, we delivered release 2, and that's the features there. Exactly.
How do you balance that?
So balancing was, I would say, we were keeping track on everything in Slack channel. We had like for front end, back end, and all these things. Basically, if you want to go what's going on, you go there and you ask if you have any questions. But the documentation we had like docs, you can go in link, and it was on GitHub. We can show later that everybody can go and change stuff there. So it's using GitHub is pretty good. On top of Gitbook, and there are some tooling that showing you the latest one. So basically, it should be a collaborative, centralized place. So. But usually the preference is to do it after really because the future delivery is kind of, yeah, priority, exactly. So, any other questions? You're doing good? Are we set? I have a question. So, anybody has any idea is trying to do or on the process doing? Any? Okay, let me ask you, why you're here? Why you're here? For example, what brought you here?
To submit a paper.
Huh?
Submit a paper to get pass the exam.
Oh, I see. You're not here for us, you're just for... Okay, that's fair. Yeah, honest. Yeah, please. Okay. Did you find anything useful so far? Oh, you want to join? Yeah. Exactly. Oh, you cannot find the second person. That's a great point, actually. One of the things that I had the same thing, I would say, if there is anything ongoing, just join them. Because I'm also part of another startup that where I'm mainly learning the process and how things going, and then, you don't have to start building stuff. You can just join somebody's building and be part of it, learn and see the things, and then go back and build something. Okay. Jody, why are you here? Tell us. Be brave. Come on, guys, it's informal. Say whatever you want. It's freedom.
I just want to understand your guys, the entrepreneurship of your guys, how to start a business and how to find it.
Do you have any questions?
No.
Okay, that's good. Okay, let's keep going. So, we struggled communication, we have hard times, we went back, mainly our core team, and we racing, okay, where we are, what we did wrong, where we challenged, what we should make different. That was the key questions we needed to answer. So, then we went back and forth and racing. After then, fixing these communication issues, we finally get yes from ITU that yes, your product looks good. We can go to the next step with ITU and launch internally. That was great news, and we speech it to some professor, and thanks, really appreciate all the professor who was from the day one continuously giving us feedback. Thanks to Chris, also helping us continuously personal development wise and product wise giving feedback. Without all these people, we couldn't be here. Another key lesson to learn: if you start building something, don't go just build it. We didn't know in the beginning who are customer and who are user. So basically, first define who is the customer and who is the user. Who is the customer? What is it? What's the difference between customer and user? How you would define it? Okay.
If any of you have questions, I will run the mic to you. Or else we can.
Oh, yeah. Thanks, Chris. I appreciate it. So, what do you think? What's the difference between customer and user?
Hold on.
The customer usually is
Uh-huh.
might
Yeah.
Is customer someone who returns back product.
Sorry, once again.
A customer is someone who returns back because he likes your product and he wants to. The user could be just one-time user.
Okay. So, I think partially all of you are right, and the key thing that mentioned that customer who is paying for product, not exactly the user, but who is paying. The user is the one. For example, in our case, ITU is a customer and student who is going to just use it and get the value. So basically, that's a key difference. Good to know that we didn't really know that in the beginning. So, scaling out the journey, so we started once we said and we get some key takeaways, and we started talking out. We start going out and talk. Just be clear. If you're gonna go out and talk, you'll get a lot of negative feedbacks, you'll get a lot of no's. The thing is, you should go home, get a sleep, next day, wake up and go and fight again. So that's the way you should do it. You shouldn't be bad or mad on the people and get hurted emotionally. That's a great thing where you should find the opportunity and grow. That's a key thing. And I think that was our stakeholders, so that's good to know, and I would encourage you to go and figure out all these stakeholders if you have an idea. Who is end user, who are the customer, who's gonna sponsor. Maybe customer is different, sponsor is different. That's, for example, inside the IT organization, you see we have different stakeholders. Find external and internal consultants, and who is gonna be the main contact person for all these stakeholders from your team. That's the things you have to define clearly. And the good thing when we come to the third semester, that's a summer third semester where we were, the good thing is we had enough experience in the process and tools, and we onboarded 5 people for this semester during the summer, and from day one there was no any communication issue because all the management, all these leadership required stuff we have in place, and that was a kind of things we did during that scope. We were mainly getting the requirement, analyzing and coming to the prototyping, and then actual development we have done with our team. But so basically we take resisting the approach for the alumni stuff we were building from the collecting requirements from the stakeholders and how to bring it and end up in the product, actually doing the development. That's the flow where we already get enough experiences. So it took time us to figure it out, but I think if you get some idea here, you don't have to really just use the key. There are a couple of things that we mentioned. They should be good enough for you to not make waste more time. So lessons learned. So during the summer, so we learned the requirement process flow. We learned different interaction technique, because you can do survey, you can go in person meet, you can do hangout. That's all these interview techniques with customer, surveys, develop, analyze, and evaluate. Because that's a key thing. You don't want to go and build or waste your time building something that your customer or end user doesn't want. So you have to really be careful, be selective on what you're going to build. Make sure that you do your homework before starting actual development. So, and that's the final stuff. So we are in third semester. We finished, shared the experiences with you, and what's coming. We're gonna do the capstone project for the coming fall semester, and here are key things. We need some in order to go out and talking to VC, you need intention letter from your customer. That's a key thing. We're gonna launch it in 28th of August and start working on job posting part and run it as open source project where any of you can join and benefit. So here is, yeah.
Guys, I just want to let you guys know that this is my first time using JobHax.com, and the experience has been really amazing because I was able to sort out so many activities on my dashboard, including what companies to apply to, what I have applied, what is my phone screen interview, on-site interview, and my job offers. I just want to record this video and say kudos to all of you guys for making this great application and delivering the solution to the real needs for people like me. So thank you so much. I'm just gonna flip my phone screen here so that you guys can see my really initial step of applying in here. But I'm gonna add more data points in here, but so far this experience has been really amazing. Thank you guys so much.
Yeah, that's just one of the ITU students who is also running SGA right now. It was so amazing. I went to work and in the morning I received SMS. She just sent me this video and I felt really excited that getting this kind of feedback, and that's kind of things from the user when you see it's keep you going. So yeah, and I'm waiting again our founder engineer just to give the product demo. There are really cool things. I would definitely advise from user perspective, you may start using it. And yeah, thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Egemen. I am working on front-end side of the JobHax project. So I'm going to give you a quick demo about JobHax and try to explain how to use it. Our website is jobhax.com. You can use our website both on your computers and mobile devices, but we are suggesting you to use it on your computers because some of the features are not compatible with mobile devices at the moment. And the first thing you should do, you should create your account and go sign up. There are two sign up options here. Sign up with Google and sign up with your email. Let's continue with Google. We are suggesting to sign up with Google because if you do that, we are linking your Gmail account with your JobHax account, and after all, you can see almost all of your job applications that you use this Gmail account when you are applying on your JobHax dashboard without no manual entry. So we have some quick questions here, like your name, surname, location. And then we're going to ask you if you're a university person or public. Let's go university and select student here. So you need to enter your school name, like this, and your major, and then expected graduation year for student. And next, you can connect with LinkedIn, but just skip that step at the moment. And after this step, this is your dashboard. You can see there are 92 applications. All of them are parsed from Seifo's Gmail account without any manual entry. There are 5 main application stages, like from to apply from screen, on-site interview and offers. You can organize all of your job applications by moving your job cards like this, drag and drop, too easy. If you want to do multiple, you can hover on any card. And there's click box, select multiple, and then move them all together. Yeah, and this is still so slow to make all of your job applications. So probably before January, all of your job applications which is done before January is already completed, and probably they're all rejected. So you can filter these job applications by date, and then click just one, select all, and then move all of them to rejected. Just like that. Yeah, it seems your dashboard is organized at the moment, and you know all of these applications are from your Gmail. You can also add any manual application like that. We are, yeah, when you are linking your Google account or Gmail account with JobHax account, we are asking a permission to read your emails. But we are not reading all of your emails. We are just querying some emails that are emails to job application response emails from some specific companies like LinkedIn, Hire.com, Indeed. When you apply any job application on these companies, on these websites, we are automatically getting an approval email. We are just querying these emails and then getting the data of company name, position, and if there is any company logo. And for all of these job cards, you have more data. Just go and click. Yeah. This job details data, we have contacts tab. In this contacts tab, you can add any contact here. Like, you know somebody who's working this company or any recruiter, you would like to remind them. And the other thing is the reviews part. Yeah, in this part, you only see the reviews which are done for spin company and for product engineering position. So these are company and position specific reviews, and you can also add any review like this. For company and interview, you can select anonymous if you don't want to show your name. Yeah. And the other side, there is notes option. You can add anything that you want to remember about this job application, like that. And also you can move your job card from here to. Yeah, that's pretty much about the dashboard side. Let's go to the metrics. So the data you have on the dashboard, we are building some meaningful metrics on this page. This metrics group, the first metrics group you see here, is your individual metrics. You can see your job application journey on graphs. Like 4.3% of your job applications at on screen rate at the moment. We did the organization for your dashboard, right? This is important to see, to have more meaningful and real metrics. That's why we are doing it. So you can see the top job sources, Session04 at like 23 jobs from Indeed. And yeah, it's pretty much like that. And go below. The second metrics group is the metrics for all ITU students, the aggregated data of university students. You can see like the top company for ITU students apply to Adobe most, 7 times, and at the same amount for LinkedIn. The peak season is March. There are like more than 200-300 applications on March. You can see the top positions like software engineer. In this part, you can see the ITU's average data, and you can compare your data with your classmates. Yeah, we can go to the next page, which is alumni. We are basically listing all of the ITU alumni who also JobHax user here. But it's not just a basic listing page. You have the advanced filtering options, like there are 6 filter options. You can select any, you can search their name, year, their major. You can even search by their company, their position, and their location. Yes, you can try to find if there are any Android developer ITU alumni here. And also, if you click one of these cards, you will see these details. And there, if they add on, you're gonna see the contact information. There is another cool thing about the alumni. Let's go to the dashboard there. So if any alumni is working on the companies that you already applied, you're gonna see their information on the contacts tab automatically, like this. And you can also click and see the details. Yeah. Let's go to the next page, which is companies. The main function of this page is to see the reviews for companies. There are 3 basic filters. You can only see the companies you apply. You can filter them with only reviews. You can search them. Like, there is CPT, OPT, H1B statistics. If anybody give reviews about the CPT, OPT, if these companies support CPT, hire from CPT, hire from OPT, if you give these reviews, we're gonna display it here, and other students can see them. And there is another thing, you can filter the reviews by positions for these companies. Yes, that's pretty much. And we can go to the next one, the profile page. We have a basic profile page at the moment. You have basic information, academic information, and you have some employment information. You can always edit this information. You can update profile photo, change your settings, like password or username. Yeah, if you haven't signed up with Google, there is always an option to link your Gmail account with JobHax in here. If Safer wouldn't sign up with his Gmail account, there would be a link with Google button. So you can always link your account with your Gmail to get automatic parsing functionality. Yeah, that's pretty much. You can go to the dashboard and you can get any questions if you have.
Where are the jobs?
What?
Where are the jobs?
Where are the jobs? The locations?
No, I mean, if a company has an opening, how do I find it?
This is not a job posting website at the moment. We are building this functionality too. This is mainly for tracking and organizing your job application process and provide you some metrics. Also, we're gonna have mentorship functionalities soon, and job posting options will become like in a couple months, I guess.
Okay, so if you are linking it with LinkedIn and I go and apply a job posting in LinkedIn, will it get integrated here?
So you actually don't need to do that. If you are signing with Google or you link your Google account at any time, if you use that Gmail account, like that Gmail account is the Gmail account that you are using at your LinkedIn, LinkedIn sends you a response mail when you apply a job. We are getting data from this response mail.
So from Gmail it picks that mail and it will populate here, right?
Can you say it again?
From the same Gmail account it picks the mail and populate here.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, I really extremely proud to work with this team. Just before we go to Q&A, I would like to applause. Really, that was really a great journey, and really appreciate that. First thing, one of the also key takeaway, just first enjoy spending time together, and then work start coming along. And one clarification regarding the email, what you were asking for. We are fully Google application verified, our application for privacy, all this stuff, and we are basically making the Gmail API call, which took us 3 months and 32 emails to get through it. It wasn't easy. We were even checking the alternate options, but that's.
So how regularly do you parse the emails or your emails?
So again, sorry,
How regularly?
how we did?
Yeah.
They call it Gmail API with
I
our,
know, but every week, every month, every day.
Like how often?
yeah, and let's say for talk about.
Actually, we are parsing the emails the first time you create your account, and then as you can see, there's a refresh button over there. Once you click that, it's gonna parse the time that the first time requires to the current time.
So if you, I didn't initiate that process, it won't parse me like this.
Basically, you have option to just sign up with that Gmail, link it, and then unlink it. There is a bunch of options you can do, and yeah, it's just up to user. And there is a legacy page, all the how we are doing it, because without all these, Google doesn't let you do stuff. So
We are also parsing when you log out and sign in with Google again.
any other questions? Yeah, please.
So is it just parsing, or you are saving this data on your servers as well?
Actually, we are just parsing the company titles and job position titles and the date alert and the logo.
Okay. My question is coming from the background where I want to know like what kind of risk, legal risks do you see in future, and if you are doing something to safeguarding your startup against it.
About reading mails.
Reading the mails could be like some people may not like it. So how do you counter that thing?
Yeah, actually for now it's also optional. You shouldn't. Yeah, you don't have to use your Gmail account. You don't have to use your Gmail account in order to get this. But if you don't give that access, you won't be able to see your job applications automatically. Right? You will have to add them by manually adding like the titles, positions, and also we are planning to have a Chrome extension to give the control to you to add that job application to your dashboard. And we're also thinking about having a Gmail extension here, like giving the control of your mails to you or yourself. But it's kind of like manual work for the user.
Yeah, personally I think Chrome extension is safer.
I would say just one thing, if you really don't want to give to just any simple email that you can create for your job applications and use it. But definitely there is no point. Also, there is no concern because there is all, as I said, Google legal team has to go through and we make for them video to go with the code and what we are doing. It's basically just only get to put the emails with standard subject from PEM job searching website. So when we call Gmail API, we are just getting all these template emails. We are not doing any NLP or something on top of this.
Alright, that answers my question. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
And I actually would like to add something. We are not saving any of your data on our own services or third-party services. We are just using Google services. So your Gmail data is already saved Google databases, and we are also using Google services. So in security-wise, there is kind of no problem.
The reason I was asking about this is the privacy policy concerns. Actually, I checked the privacy policy right now, and there are some mentioning of using Gmail for parsing Gmail, but I still think it's not enough, because when you showed me like how I can see all the alumni of my school, I wonder if that's optional or not as well. There are some privacy concerns here, and that's I think the idea is amazing, but when it comes to the privacy thing, like the implementation is wonderful. Like I like having you grab everything together and you put them in a board-like interface, but when it comes to the privacy, I have serious questions.
Yeah, I think that's a valid concern. the privacy thing is something that we've been learning as we go. And so the way we started to deal with it from the beginning was to ask permission every time. So the alumni feature is new, but every time, for example, the student wants to share his data with career advisor, it has to go through permission for the student. If the alumni wants to be visible, within our page, it should be again like, hey, they ask for permission for that. When they set up their Gmail account and they ask for access to their, email parsing or whatever through Gmail, we ask for permission for that. We went through a very tedious process with Google to get a privacy policy reviewed as well. And so it took like 3 months, and we had a back and forth with the content we had, and they did a full thorough review of the privacy policy itself. And so this is something definitely we'll have to keep in mind throughout the process, but we've been learning, and I think our strategy has been working well so far. We just need to refine it a little bit more, like we said.
So I have a question on the back end. Are you using Django by any chance?
And before we go to the next question, I will address the privacy concerns as it relates to IT students. So since I'm the director of student life, I work with them in terms of making sure and ensuring that all of your data and everything like that is safe. So since I am not a tech expert though, we also collaborate with some professors on campus who are and know a lot of the background of it and are able to have these intense conversations with them about the privacy concerns. I mentioned my own privacy concerns because, as you all may know, that there's something called FERPA, so that protects your information and the distribution of this information and things of that nature. So we definitely make sure to safeguard this, especially for IT students here. So I don't want you guys to think that we are just haphazardly, putting out your data. I know they're working really hard, and then on our end, we're making sure and working in conjunction with them to make sure that nothing is getting distributed that shouldn't be. Next question.
Appreciate, Chris.
So I have 2 questions. One, since you're not saving any data, if I delete...
You love the questions. You love the questions. Thank you.
You love the questions. So since you're not saving the data, and if I delete an email on my Gmail, will it be gone from here?
Actually, we are not saving your original mail. We are just saving the information that we extracted from your mail. So we have a database that we keep your job application details. So it won't be deleted from your dashboard if you delete the email.
Basically, you need from the dashboard manually delete that to get all this.
Second question is basically the community, helping the community, right? So, for example, if one of the alums has applied to Apple and has got through or got rejected in a telephonic interview or round 2 or round 3, and like 10 students applied to Apple, and you have that summary there. The person who got through the telephonic round to level 2, level 3, is it possible to get his email ID to email him on the round of questions, how the test was, etc.? Is that a possibility you've thought about? Because that's where sharing comes about.
Actually, we are planning to connect the people who has experience with, like you said, Google. I passed 2 on-site interview stages. But Sako, he's just applied for Google. And as JobHax, we know I'm on the on-site interview stage, and Sako is like just advice stage, and he wants to benefit from my experience, right? We are planning to have a tool to connect these 2 people. Yes, in future, you can be able to connect somebody who get to on-site interviews at Google to ask how was their interview.
So you will have his name and email, contact numbers shared to that person who's applying, or?
We are thinking how we should do it at the moment.
I will just make a small addition to this. So once a girl was shown, if you remember the reviews part, that's where once you go through experience, it's all about the community, you know. That's kind of Glassdoor inside ITU. So basically, if you went through this experience, it's better you engage, of course, but it's still up to individual to go and write the review. Once they write the reviews, if you are applying, you will see these reviews for the company. So basically, it's,
let's say I've not written any review, but on my dashboard I've said on-site interview, so that means I've cleared the phone screen. So I'm on the phone screen level, and the other guy is already on the on-site. So can I get the learning from the person who's on-site?
so that's a thing that it's up to the person, because we don't want to get distraction. Let's say if he's going through the process, we don't want to continuously get distracted from other student. Hey, how was it? And all that. Unless he's gonna put the reviews, and when and after putting the reviews, the other student can go and contact them once.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. So there's one aspect of it which Sako mentioned is the reviews aspect of it, where someone has gone through the process and you can go and contact them. We've been contemplating what you said as well. This is not something that we do currently, but it's something that we'll be thinking about. There's a part of this which involves basically like authorization from the student itself. So say the student, we don't want to reveal the contact information of students without their consent, and so that's one aspect of it that we're thinking about. So one way we can show this is like, hey, we can show like an ex-student, like a bank student has gone through this interview sheet. If you're interested in contacting them, you can send an anonymous message to them, and if they accept to collaborate with you, then we give them the email or like whatever personal contact information. Does that make sense?
I don't know, that makes sense. The other thing is like, I'm a risk analyst, I come from the risk side. So in financial verticals, whenever you apply, there's like a job ID 1267, and all companies have their own job application tools. I'm sure you know about that. So when you apply through that tools, all you get is an email back, thank you, your job application for job ID 1234 has been received. How do you read such mails?
Actually, most of that applications has some similar pattern when they send you emails. So actually, we are not just parsing emails coming from LinkedIn, Indeed, Glassdoor. We are also improving that also. We are JobHax.com or the tools like that, Greenhouse, Smart Recruiters. That companies uses that tools for their internal job application processes, and they use that tools to send you application approval emails. And they use similar patterns like the title, subject of the email, or the content of the email, and we could extract that data from that emails too.
just if you are in US based, when you apply to jobs, 80 plus of the companies you will apply, you can get in the dashboard. So there are minor, let's say, career, the company website that you may not get it, where you see it's just with 1-2 clicks you can add manually. But at least it will save you enormous amount of time to not, all these stuff tracked in Excel, because me and Suhas, when we were living in, he was mentioning we were housemates, and there was another guy who ended up getting a job at Google, but he was going so many job applications in a time that he was typing everything in Excel. So instead of focusing on interview and getting prepared, he was spending so much time just writing down, and then he's okay, I have too much, I'm just done. So that was where we are trying to save your time to get prepared for be more focused on interview. Let's say what Ege was mentioning, if nobody is responding to from Adobe and there is no internal position, you shouldn't waste your time to apply to this kind of company. Just be more focused and spend your valuable time on preparing rather than applying.
Excuse me, my name is Ronald. I just have a quick question. Listening to all the concerns that have been brought up already, I have one simple question. with the product that you have? Is risk analysis report part of that you guys have prepared along with the present the product? Risk analysis. Risk analysis report. Basically, it having this product available to the public, to the users.
Risk analysis?
Yes.
Yeah, we did in second semester school project. We did some risk analysis based on priorities and stuff.
Okay, so you need to say you have a product right here, and you already have a risk analysis on how to mitigate all the concerns that we've already been asked.
Yeah, that was email was one of the concerns. That's why we give you alternate options like manual sign up. You can use another email, and we're still gonna build another third one, the completely email stuff that.
Those risk analysis, that the information you have, those are documented already?
So yeah, we have internally documented, but still it was running at a school project that
yes,
maybe it's not in enterprise or industrial level, but we are getting there. But we have something in place internally. Thank you.
So, time for one last question. Before we get to the last question, just want to re-emphasize that these guys definitely work with some ITU professors who are industry professionals. They have jobs in the field. They have run risk analysis. They understand. So there is a certain rigor that goes behind the scenes before this product reaches you guys. So it's articulated behind the scenes. It's well understood in terms of the professor's depth and expectations of what we want to present to you guys at ITU. So
just appreciate, and small addition to Chris was saying, that was one of the red flags when once in October, when first time we meet ITU professor, one of the head of security guy that he really emphasized this point. We went back and we done a lot of stuff, and you see like it's HTTPS and encrypted, all this stuff, like the stuff we countermeasure, all these we put in place. Otherwise, yeah, ITU wouldn't let us go to the next step. But it took us like 7-8 months over to come up and then get yes.
Any final questions? All right, if not, let's give them a round of applause.
Once again, I really appreciate the interactivity we have. We really get nice feedbacks, and some of them we may not be there, but we are continuously improving and learning and applying all these some around stuff, because basically building things takes time and it has a lot of failures included. But we really love the interactivity. It means because you are the main users, you're gonna use it, and if you're asking questions, it means you get interested, and hopefully you can use and give us more feedback. There is also feedback button there. You see, like, it's also we are using Capture 3 for authentication. That's the latest greatest, and it's React, by the way, from just for technical details. We are basically most of the latest greatest technologies we are using. It's basically microservice architecture, all this stuff. If you are in the tech field, just make sure it's HTTPS you see. And basically, we can talk more about technical and architecture. We are happy to talk to you offline about it. Otherwise, thanks for your time, and hope you get something zero home today. Very wonderful evening.
All right, everyone, thank you so much for coming out to this IT Presents. We're going to have some more coming up in this upcoming fall trimester in September, so definitely look out for that. Check your emails for that. These guys will be hanging around for a little bit, so if you wanted to ask them and connect with them offline and ask them some more detailed questions, feel free. If not, thank you so much. And again, feel free to sign your name if you need documentation purposes, and don't forget to take a picture, because this will be shredded right after this presentation. But thank you so much, guys, for coming out. We greatly appreciate it. Take the snacks in the back.
And thanks to Chris for continuing to support us, and appreciate Career Service from day one support. Thanks, Chris, once again.
All right, one more round of applause for these guys.